What happens when your path to parenthood involves not just one, but two different women carrying your children because your own body just can't?
So I have a rare genetic disease called Cartaginer syndrome, which means all of my organs are reversed. Any organ you have two of, they're a little bit
Everything's
different.
flip
So
flopped.
think of me as a mirror image, right?
Got it.
So I have always known that it would be really difficult, if not impossible, to conceive naturally.
But this story isn't about limitation. It's about what happens when courage and connection rewrite what's possible.
We did multiple rounds and transfers to me. Unfortunately, none of them took. My
Mm.
body just was like, it's a no for me. Um, so the doctor said, you can keep doing this to yourself, or you can hire a gestational carrier, which I had never even heard that term.
When IVF failed again and again, Whitney turned to surrogacy. And what followed changed not just her life, but the lives of two other women and their families.
I would not have a family or two beautiful children without those two incredibly selfless, amazing women. Amber and Debbie are, just like angels, like
Yeah.
angels that walk amongst us.
She's a mom of two, thanks to two separate surrogacy journeys with two incredible women. In this episode, Whitney shares what it feels like to walk through two surrogacy journeys, the heartbreak, the hope, and the humanity that makes it all possible. Whether you're an intended parent just beginning your path or simply curious about the heart behind surrogacy, this story will leave you feeling encouraged, grounded, and inspired. I'm so excited that we get to just talk about you and your amazing just family building journey. So, just to kind of kick
Yeah.
it right off, when you first began kind of exploring surrogacy as how you were going to grow your family, what did you picture how it might be like? And maybe in what ways did the reality kind of surprise you, or what was kind of maybe different about what that picture was versus when it actually got started?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I guess just a little bit of a backstory,
Yeah.
right? Is so I have a rare genetic disease called Cartaginer syndrome, which is, I'll just make it really short, and it just means all of my organs are reversed. So my heart's on my right side, then like
Mm.
lungs, any organ you have two of, they're a little bit
Everything's
different.
flip
So
flopped.
think of me as a mirror image, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it primarily affects my pulmonary system and my reproductive system.
Got it.
So I have always known that it would be really difficult, if not impossible, to conceive naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So when my husband Mark and I, we weren't even engaged yet, but my firm, the PR firm at the time that I worked at, covered IVF, and so
Mm.
we went ahead and started the process. It did not come as a surprise that it would
Mm-hmm.
be challenging, but we did multiple rounds and transfers to me. Unfortunately, none of them took.
Yeah.
So the doctor said, you can keep doing this to yourself, or, a gestational carrier, which I had never even heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, what is that? And oh, okay, it's a surrogate.
Wow.
And so we had, grade A embryos, but every time we would transfer to me, it wouldn't take. So
Right. Right.
that's when we decided to go down the surrogacy route. I have, a number of girlfriends who have done IVF or, IUI and IVF, and but I personally didn't know anyone that had a surrogate.
Mm-hmm.
So my I'll use quotes because it's laughable, but my knowledge of surrogates was either Kim Kardashian
Sure.
or that movie, oh gosh, what was it, Baby Mama, with Tina Fey and
Uh-huh.
Amy Poehler.
Yes.
And I was just like, yeah, I mean, all right.
Sure, you kind of came to the table. Yeah, you came to the table with that. And sure, when no, even knowing that, just from very early on, that carrying a child in kind of the, quote, typical way was going to be challenging, what were kind of those feelings around, even as you guys were going through the IVF and it wasn't going how you were hoping, especially with such great embryos and,
Right, right.
kind of having all of that in your favor?
So I think everyone is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
To each their own. That's what makes the world go round.
Absolutely.
But you know, again, growing up, I knew that it would be difficult, and but I there was never I never had a strong desire to be a mom. There are, so many of my girlfriends who like loved babysitting, or, anytime a kid would be at the table, they'd be like, "Can we hold your baby?" And I'm like, "I'm good," you know,
Sure.
like I'm good. And then I met my husband, Mark. We're both originally from Texas.
So funny.
Go figure.
Yeah.
You have to move to Manhattan to meet a fellow Texan. But once, we became more and more serious, and I was like, oh, this actually is someone that was the only person that I would want to have kids with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he was the one. So uh yeah. Um
Yeah. So as you were going through it, even though you kind of, it hadn't necessarily been this lifelong, dream of yours, when it did become your dream, even knowing that it was going to be tough, was it still, were you more pragmatic about it, or was it still kind of like, oh gosh, this is definitely still kind of getting at me, even though you knew medically speaking it was going to be difficult?
uh You know, no. No. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess also if growing up, I feel like I like grew up in a doctor's office. So
Mhm.
I was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is just like another thing I got to do. And definitely, I mean, in my opinion, one of, if not the most important things that I need to do, or that I want to do,
Mm.
rather.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the shots and the pills and I mean, it is, um, it's a, it's a rough road.
Sure.
And it's taxing in every sense of the word,
Mhm.
physically, emotionally, financially. The IVF process is hard on your body. And weight gain and mood swings, etc. But like as I said, Mark was definitely like the one, to be like, okay, this is someone that would I could see us raising children together.
Yeah.
But I guess I really knew it when we weren't engaged yet, or maybe had only been engaged for like a month or something. But when I started my first round, and we were in, an 800 square foot apartment in New York City, and I'm doping myself up on hormones, just being a crazy person. And he was there like for all of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, if he's, I mean, if we're not even married and he's okay with me being just like this off the rails, then like, you know, we'll make it.
We'll make it. Sure.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
question. There's no
yeah.
question. So when it came to, okay, we've done this, we've gone through the shots, we're, losing our brains at this point, and this idea of surrogacy came to mind. You said your references were, like Kim Kardashian and baby mama. How did you go from kind of that to, no, this is absolutely the road to our family?
Yeah. Well, after, so many transfers and not taking and then having to start from scratch,
Yeah.
um, then I looked into gosh, I mean, a number of agencies, and did initial phone calls with um, probably 8, if not 10. I mean, it was pretty taxing,
Yeah.
and just getting price points and seeing who you like mesh or vibe with,
Sure.
And so then we were down to 2 agencies, and then um, at the time it was Surrogate Solutions. I mean, I especially really loved the fact that all of the women who um, worked there had been surrogates
Mm-hmm.
before. And so it was in my eyes, there wouldn't have been a scenario that would pop up where like someone on the team wouldn't have already faced it or dealt with it with another client or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just a for me a big um, sense of like relief, and it just kind of felt like nice and sweet, and like Katie is great, and yeah, so we decided to move forward, and it's definitely easily the best decision that we've ever made, because we ended up with 2 great children, but it was definitely a 4+ year road getting there.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. You were in a doctor's office, right? Growing up, you're like, okay, this is just one step. And you kind of have like your checklist. And again, kind of that pragmatic mind. When you kind of finally got down to the emotional aspect of it, what did it feel like to really place that trust in another woman to carry, your child, not once, but twice? And two different women.
You fill out a profile, kind of like, an online, what I would imagine is, akin to a dating profile, right? And we matched with Amber and her husband Ryan, and, their 3 kids, and we like instantly clicked.
Mm.
The only reservation that we honestly had was that I wanted to be as involved as I could be, and she lived in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
so that was like our only kind of deterrent, if you will.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it was, you know, she we talk and text and FaceTime, and she came out to her and Ryan came out to visit. Like they came to Houston. And Mark and I, for like the big appointments, like 20 week, etc., we
Yeah.
would go to Florida. And we would always, go out to dinner with like them and their kids, and it was just a great experience.
Yeah, and definitely not the baby mama experience.
Yeah, no, no, thank God. Yeah, I mean, we hit it off from the first, like our first call.
Yeah.
So, it was really great.
I love that you say you matched as a family because I think that is just so important, like such an important aspect of this journey as a whole is that it's not just, surrogate and intended mom or surrogate and intended parents or, that kind of thing. It really is a family affair. It's,
Yeah.
her partner and kids that are part of this and, y'all and your extended family and, all of these people cheering you on. And I mean it's linking families for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, anytime we went to Florida, we always did something with their three kids.
Hmm.
Um, Once Patton he was born January 2020, but I mean, I went and got like a birthday cake and little like hats and stuff so that her kids could come up and we could have like a birthday party for Patton.
Oh.
So it's definitely, and his parents were there. Um, they live in they're Florida based as well. But I mean, her family, like I will FaceTime with, and we're friends on social media, and so I mean, it's definitely a a merging of families. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we had a birthday party, with cake in the hospital room, and wheeled Patton in, and so her kids could meet him, and um, yeah, it was. I mean, it was just just great.
I love that. How did it feel after having that experience? And then now you have your own base of knowledge. How did it feel doing this again a second time?
So, um, I was I was more nervous going into the second time than I was the first, which people might think is a little bit odd, but I had such a good relationship and experience, etc., with Amber and her
Mm-hmm.
family and our family. Um, that I was like, well, but like Amber's my person, like
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't, and she had a few complications following the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And so it she would not be medically cleared to do it again.
Right.
And so I was like, well, no, like now what am I going to do? But you're supposed to do them both,
Mm.
And so that was definitely a bummer. I mean, I don't have like a better way to explain it, but it was really upsetting, like for both of us,
Yeah.
because we were like, we totally hit it off, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're in it for the long haul. Egg donor and surrogate solutions, they like really work in lockstep with you big
Mm-hmm.
time. Like I could call or text my like either Lauren or Christina, like my like go-to people,
Mm-hmm.
or even Katie. Um, and I'm sure they just thought I was completely unhinged, which I was at times. But I could call or text or email, and one of them, if not, or and like Gail, and they would all like instantly reply. And I knew that I wanted to, one, we had this other embryo, and
Yeah.
I wanted to have, give my child a sibling. And so I said, the matching process can be lengthy, right? And I said, just toss our name in the ring, because we do know we want to like
Move
have
forward.
another kid and
Yeah.
would prefer like we're not getting any younger, so let's just start the process. And I want to say I don't even think it was a month actually when I
Wow.
got a call saying, "Hey, we have a woman that we think would be great." And she is in like outside of Houston,
Yeah.
like a suburb. And I was like, well, I was not expecting this phone call so
Sure.
so soon, but okay. I mean, if obviously, I trust these people, like look at what they were able to just, connect me with. And now, you know, I wouldn't have, Patton without, this agency. And it, they always say like, oh, it takes a village to raise a child, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But like on the same token, it can take a village to even like have a
Create
child,
a
not
child.
raise
Yeah.
one, just to like produce it, right? Um, so anyway, so the agency, they paired us, and we, met with them on Zoom. And again, like, uh, you have to put into context of timing of this, because so Patton was born January 2020, and the world basically shut down March 2020.
Right.
So I want to say we got this call in maybe, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, like April or May. And then by maybe June, July, something, like all of the testing, and evaluations, et cetera, has to occur. So, it is a process. But yeah, we were like, okay, well,
Here we go.
everything's checked off. So, yeah, I mean, Debbie, is here in Houston. So I was really excited about that, because then I could be more present. But it was COVID, so I couldn't.
Sure.
So it was kind of the same ish. Actually, I was allowed it less with Debbie than I was like with Amber, just
Uh-huh.
given all of the protocols that were in place at the time. So Wheezy was born um, in June of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And the OBGYN, who was just incredible, she had delivered Debbie's two daughters. And she was like,
Oh.
I'm going to just let you know, this is going to be probably the easiest delivery. Like, the OB was like, in my like 20 plus years of practice, I've never seen anyone like deliver a kid like this.
Oh,
And so I
wow.
was like, okay. And we had talked, like, here and there, and also like via Zoom and stuff. I said, well, Patton was C-section, so, I
The
was,
experience was just totally different.
yeah, yeah, totally
Yeah.
different. And so, I was seated like behind the tarp,
Mm-hmm.
and then with Wheezy, I said, as long as like everything's going well, and stats are good and whatever, I would love to deliver Wheezy. And she said sure. So Debbie, she said, but I will tell you, when Debbie like gets her feet in these stirrups, like y'all's daughter is gonna be here like
Yeah.
lickety split. And I was kind of like, yeah, 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 okay. And she was not lying, because I scrubbed in. Debbie pushed 3 times, and Wheezy, I pulled Wheezy out, like
Wow.
put Wheezy on Debbie's belly. My husband Mark and Debbie's husband Jeff, I was like, "Don't you want to see it?" And Jeff was like, "I've seen it. I'm good." And my husband Mark was like, "I'm also good. Like, we're good back here. Like, we'll like, like give her a shoulder pat or like,
There you
hold
go.
her hand or like give her some ice chips or something if she needs it." But so the literally the entire birth video of me delivering Wheezy is 38 seconds.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's amazing
And it was
though.
awesome. And so, and
Yeah.
Mark got to cut the cord, and and Debbie is, up walking around, like no problem. It, it was wild to witness.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
also, uh, I've only seen like the movies, right? And so I'm expecting this like screaming and all of this,
Mhm.
whatever. And
Mhm.
she literally like made no noise, like pushed 3 times, and Wheezy was there. And then that night, like she walked down to our room and we had a pizza party.
I love it.
Like me, Mark, Jeff, her husband, and Debbie, we ordered Papa John's.
And had a pizza party. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll get right back to the show. But real quick, if you're dreaming of growing your family through egg donation or surrogacy, we'd love to help. At Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, we've spent 18 years guiding hopeful parents with compassion, expertise, and personal experience. Our team includes people who have been intended parents, surrogates, egg donors, and even nurses. So when we say we understand, we truly do. You can schedule a free 15-minute call with our team at createahappyfamily.com to get your questions answered and explore your next steps. You don't have to navigate this journey alone. We're here to walk it with you. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
But I love this so much that it went from how your vision of just this process, this journey went from, People magazine headlines to oh my gosh, I can't imagine this any other way. Oh, wow. My world, our family just got a little bit bigger with, another amazing family to help us grow our family. And, just again, that progression of those different relationships. How did you kind of navigate, I think you have a lot of intended parents who are maybe worried about communication or, like you said, you kind of the second time you went in a little more nervous because you had kind of your experience and a little bit
Right.
there was a bit of
Right.
ignorance is bliss, and then now it was like, oh, I have more experience with what this could be and how this could go, and then to have that experience now, how did you kind of grapple between just all of those things at play while you had a pandemic going on and a newborn, like you've got a lot going on all at once.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, it was a lot, and
Yeah.
very uh trying. But really, I mean, both Amber and Debbie, I won't get emotional, but I mhm, I would not have a family or two beautiful children without those two incredibly selfless, amazing women. And yeah, I mean, so it's just been like a huge, huge blessing. And we keep
Mm-hmm.
in touch, and, having like the birthday party, with Patton, was hilarious, because it was like his parents and, all three of her kids, and, um,
True party.
Yeah, it was a party. And then, Debbie was obviously different because it was,
Still
COVID
a little
and
lockdowny.
protocol,
Yeah.
especially hospital wise, and rightfully so at the time, was really tight. So her kids, they came over, I want to say when Wheezy was like, I don't know, a couple weeks old, maybe a month old.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like a play date. I mean, I don't know how much you can play if you're like, you know, a
Whatnot.
newborn. So it was important to me that the kids, and they varied in age, right?
Yeah.
So that the kids, at least to the best of our collective ability, felt like they were a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
they, the little birthday party, or, all of them came over for a play date. They were all here for Wheezy's first birthday. Like, so they just understood, or, help them understand. And so to me, that was important, that they felt like they were a a part. Of the journey.
Yeah.
And so what I would send, both like little like gifts, like socks
Mm-hmm.
and robes and whatever, would always like send the kids, which I'm sure looking back on it, and even now as my kids are 5.5 and 4, like now I'm like, I probably would be just cussing me out because I sent like, you know, fruit roll-ups and
Sure.
like, all this like
All the
stuff
good
that,
stuff.
I mean, the great stuff, the amazing snacks. But I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And like, a slime kit, and
Sure.
things that I was like, oh, that's fun. Add to cart, send it to Florida, like send it off to Debbie. I'm never gonna see that again. But but yeah, to that.
Yeah, no, I love the fact again that it was so important for you and your heart was so big that it was a invitation to the whole family. This is a whole family experience.
It is, and or was, and still is, for us,
Yeah.
at least. But there are plenty of surrogacy journeys that look very different,
Yeah,
or they it's more transactional, more of a business deal. I mean, again, you know it is a business deal. I mean, there are lawyers involved. You know what I mean. It is, it's
sure.
a contract, and it's, but and so there are plenty of people that um that's when that baby comes out, it is, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I
And
think that is I think that's what makes the matching process so important, and having kind of that honest conversation with yourself as far as if you're coming to the table, what is it that you do want? What is that vision? And let's have that conversation and let's match you accordingly, because you're exactly right. Every relationship is different and you can't compare the two. But I
right.
think you do have, some intended parents who, kind of worry like, what if my relationship with my surrogate doesn't look like someone else's? And so since
And well, the
you,
answer to that is it won't. No,
there you go.
none of them will look, none of them will look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you use the same surrogate twice in a row, it'll be a different journey each time,
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, that's something that obviously I learned and can say, having done that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always, it's going to be different. And I just
Yeah.
am, Mark and I, and my in-laws and sister-in-laws, and my parents, and we're just so appreciative, and you know lucky to have them. I mean, we literally just say like that Amber and Debbie are, just like angels, like
Yeah.
angels that walk amongst us, you know.
That's a beautiful way to put it. What what did each of those relationships teach you?
Mm, what did each of them teach me? Well, I'm a big believer in always paying it forward in whatever
Mm,
capacity I can. And so to me, I think, carrying someone else's child and giving them, the opportunity that they would not have without you, um, is probably is the largest like paying it forward as it gets.
sure.
Yeah, I mean they have made it possible for me to do, for not only me, but Mark and, everyone that our families, extended families, and
Yeah.
Patton and Weezy's, friends, etc. Like, uh, none of this, the pictures on the wall, and wouldn't exist without them. So I think just like the paying it forward
Mm-hmm.
mindset, and um, there's a lot of bad in the world, right? And it just seems like it just continues to get increasingly with each day or even like moment. You
Mm-hmm.
scroll and and having the two experiences that I was so lucky and afforded to experience with both of those women, um like showed me how much good there is in the world,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um which sounds kind of cheesy, but I mean it's a big decision, and again, like they don't have any uh loyalty to me, to carry, my it's such a big, it's the best gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
The two best gifts that I will ever receive. Um, and so yeah, it's hard to like put into words, but it's like the most beautiful, I don't know, most beautiful thing I could like ever ask for.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I think, again, one of my takeaways that I hear from you as you're talking about all of the experiences is every way that you celebrated this journey and celebrated them and y'all all together, how your extended family, was in on it and everything. And I love that you make a point to, kind of teach Patton and Wheezy, just their birth story and where they came from and how you celebrate, that as as they grow up and,
Yeah, and I mean, and like they are way too young, you know, to even understand. Um, and so we haven't like sat them down. But we're like, oh, this is Aunt Amber and this is Aunt Debbie. But it's like, yeah, well, we have a million aunts, or you know what I mean?
sure, sure. Yeah.
And but but yeah, I mean, as they I think it was Patton, maybe like a year ago, said, because our going up our staircase, we have all family photos, like wedding to, you know, newborn photos,
Sure.
etc. And along our staircase. And Patton, yeah, it was Patton. I was like, how, where are the pictures of me and your belly?
Mm.
Which, like, of course, totally threw me off, and I just
Sure.
wasn't prepared for it. And I said, oh, well, you know how mommy has, a bad cough. And so I said, how mommy is sick and mommy has that cough. And I was like, well, mommy's belly, was broken, but, her friend, Aunt Amber, she helped me. And so she had you. And I was waiting for this whole like, well, and it, how did that happen? Blah, 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 blah. And then it was literally like, um, something like, can you get, and like off to the next. And I was like,
Sure.
okay. I was like, oh my God. I was like, so not like prepared for that, when the, I mean, there's pictures of Debbie and Amber, around our house, and we talk about them, and I text them here and there, and we'll FaceTime on birthdays and stuff. But I mean, they're still little, so
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll cross that when we need to.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But again, I love how in our minds we think it's this huge thing and oh my gosh, what is going to be the after effects? And then it's just, oh, okay, moving on. Like
Right,
it just
right.
is. It's just information.
Yeah, yeah. It was basically, I was like, okay, Whitney, like you're in PR, you're quick on your feet, and I was just like, okay, yeah, like I got to get my talking points in a row for like when he does have, or when they both have,
Some follow-up questions.
some follow-up questions. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, sure. For, just a hopeful parent listening right now, maybe feeling nervous about getting started with the journey, or maybe, a parent who's done this and can't imagine, growing their family with someone else, what maybe words of encouragement or advice would you give them?
Um, I would say, and again, this is just my guidance.
Yeah.
I would say really have like an open mind and an open heart,
Mm,
because every, I mean, every individual is different, but especially growing an individual, a little person, and it's just, it's going to be different, and there will be, high highs and low lows. I had a number of failed transfers. We had, when we transferred with Amber, it was the last embryo that we had, and it did not take, so I had to start from scratch for the third time.
mhm,
And so it's, everybody's story is going to be different,
mhm.
but I mean, not to put the pressure on the medical community, but I mean the science and the data and what is capable in this world of, infertility, it just blows my mind. And you know it only continues to advance. And so if you feel like, okay, I've done IUI and I've done IVF and it doesn't work, and so I really don't want, a surrogate, it just, I would say, if your bottom line is that you want a child, right? And I obviously very highly recommend using a reputable agency. I mean, look, you can find a surrogate on like Craigslist, I'm sure. I haven't, I would, that's not my guidance. But, I mean, it's just, it's, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. And when I first heard, the word journey, I thought it was like so hokey. But it's true. I mean, it really is a journey. And for Amber, like she was in Florida, and that was like almost a deal breaker to us. And Mark and I say all the time, like, can you even imagine
Mhm.
if we like, because we wanted someone in state. One, so like we could be there at appointments and be more present, and two, obviously it's you know a little cheaper.
Sure, yeah, you're
Not
not having
to,
to fly.
and so but it's like, God, like I would have missed out on Amber and Ryan and her, three amazing children. And and the same is true with, Debbie and Jeff and their kids. So again, that's not, you know, luckily, and I guess, medically and scientifically, we're in a world where um, there are a ton of ways in which you become a parent.
Mhm.
And I got the question pretty frequently, which was like, well, what if, the surrogate decides to keep the baby? Or what if, what if,
Sure.
right. And so it's like, well, legally, like they
Not a
can't.
thing.
Right. Not a thing. Right. It is, very significant legal contractual, process. But, you know, do you think like you're gonna click with your kid,
Yeah.
because you haven't had them, kick or hiccup, or you haven't experienced that. And at, at least for me, I mean, I was like this with with both kids,
Yeah.
like instantly. But on the same hand, I have good girlfriends who, you know, birthed their own kid, their own children, and it took a while for them to kind of bond. So I just like give yourself a lot of grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, that keep an open mind
Yeah,
and keep an open heart.
right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And the
No, I
good
love that.
news, I don't know if it's a selling point, but it was quite fun because I was not pregnant. You know, I flew Amber in for Patton's shower, and also for Wheezy's. And so, and it was hilarious because I have a picture of the four of us, me, Debbie, and Amber, and then Patton is probably, I mean, a year and a couple months old,
Uh-huh.
and he's touching Debbie's belly.
Mm.
And but Amber and I had been like slamming champagne together at Wheezy's baby shower, because obviously Debbie couldn't, because she was pregnant with Wheezy. Anyway, and so it was um there's no one right way to do something, which I feel like that is true in so many like different ways in this world.
Mm-hmm.
that, yes, it is gut wrenching, heartbreaking at times, but, all of the shots and tears and weight gain and, financial stress, uh, literally like all went away, January 17th, 2020, as soon as I held patent.
Mm.
And and the same is true when I, excuse me, delivered Wheezy June 4th, 2021.
Yeah.
So it's a process and it's hard. It's difficult, but um, you will get there. And it is hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you'll get there. And all of the shit that you went through to get there,
Yes.
when you have that, your kid in your arms, it just makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. 100%. No, you are so right. Whitney, thank you so much for
You're
just your
welcome.
vulnerability and, just all of those just words of wisdom and, getting to be at the light at the end of that tunnel. And, I'm so grateful and appreciative that you were willing to tell your story. I have one last question for you, and it's a fun one. So you've
Okay.
seen me this whole time sipping on my cup of coffee. It's probably an embarrassing number of cups of coffee that I've had today, but I always love
Oh,
to
I'm
ask.
jealous. I've only had one, and I'm
Oh, we got to
like
get
I'm
to
like
it.
fiending,
Oh, yeah, no, we've got to get to it for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I love to ask the question, what filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing that has filled your cup?
Okay, so Whitney, I am not a crier. You have now made me cry two, maybe three times. I mean, I'm very, I'm very, it's black and white. You either like me or you don't. There's
Yeah.
no, what you see is what you get. But I will say, Mark, my husband, is out of town, for work last night, and so what I would say filled my cup today was both kids tend to come into our bed anywhere between like 3 and 5:30
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
every night almost, which again, teach their own. But um, I woke up this morning with them on each of my, like, eh, in my arms.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I had, this podcast today. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe like how incredibly blessed and lucky I am to like have this life that I
Mm.
never like thought was possible. Like, and that, I
Yeah.
mean, this is, 7:23 a.m.
Oh, look at them. Oh.
And so, and we woke up, and Daddy wasn't here, so we had milk and cookies for
I love it.
breakfast. For
I
breakfast, and
love it.
usually they're in a uniform, but today is they Fridays they get free dress, and Wheezy picked out like this cute outfit, um, and they now that Patton's in kindergarten, it's his responsibility to walk Wheezy into her classroom. So, and they walked in hand, and I was just like,
Oh, here we are. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's like the best Three Musketeers breakfast I've ever heard of. That's
right,
perfect.
right,
I mean, it's a dream. It's a dream realized, and you're watching it, just right in front of you.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, no, that's amazing. Well, again, thank you so much. And
You're
I
welcome.
I'm just I'm so happy that we got
And I
to.
will say, like, I mean, I know obviously y'all are great resources, but I do. I am an open book. And so, if there's anybody out there that has questions or,
Mm.
wants to chat, there were two women who I actually have never met in person, but one was in Alabama and one is in Texas. And it was like friend of a friend of a friend of a friend,
Sure.
right? And those two women were so instrumental and helpful when I was first starting out.
Hmm.
And I mean, they must have, allocated 4, 6, 8 hours of their lives, like talking to me through things.
Hmm.
And so I guess kind of similarly, like always paying it forward, like feel free, like give my email out. I'm happy to, you know, be a resource or,
Yeah.
anything because I mean, it's challenging, but and you'll need people that have walked in those shoes.
Hmm.
Your spouse is obviously, or a partner, and family and friends are fantastic, and also, faith and God. But to be able to call someone or just shoot them a quick text like, "Hey, this happened," or, and for them to have, already walked the walk, it is really helpful. So if I can do what the Alabama and Texas woman, did for me, I would do for anyone. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being a resource.
You're
Because
welcome.
it is so important to have people. You do have that support, like you said, with your family or your friends. But it is so nice to have that unique support of another person who has been on this journey before. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I'm again,
Okay.
thank
You're
you.
welcome.